guinea pigs to see how well you do. So we're gonna sing. We're gonna sing the song that the girls sang as a special last Sunday morning, I think. This is Jesus. It's called. It's to the tune of "Come Thou Fount." Is that correct, Miss Lori? All right. So try your best and sing out until.
Heaven's brilliance from above, light of glory, pierce the darkness, mercy pierce my heart with love. This is Jesus, King of glory, here to rescue from the fall, Son of God who comes to save us, Prince of Peace and Lord of all.
Doing pretty good. It'll get hard on the bridge. All right. So follow these two girls because I don't know it either. Here we go on the second.
Oh, the mystery, who could fathom God would leave his holy throne for a manger, for a sinner, for us all to be his own. This is Jesus, King of glory, here to rescue from the fall, Son of God who comes to save us, Prince of Peace and Lord of all. Rejoice, he is with us. Rejoice, hope is here. Rejoice, he is with us. Rejoice, hope is here. Rejoice, he is with us. Rejoice, hope is here. Rejoice, he is with us. Rejoice, hope is here. This is Jesus, King of glory, here to rescue from the fall, Son of God who comes to save us, Prince of Peace and Lord of all. For the heart so prone to wander, for these feet so quick to flee, God is here and love is reaching for the lost and least of these.
Amen. Good job. That's pretty good for the first time. I think that was my first time singing it too. So you're not alone. Let's open up the service in prayer. Brother Nick, Lucian, would you mind opening us up? Amen. We're going to sing an old song. My research tells me this song is from the 12th century. That's the 1100s. And so people have been singing this for a real long time. It's not in our hymn books, but it's a good one. It's O Come, Emmanuel. Who knows this song? Raise your hand. Okay, good. A lot of people know this one. So sing this along with us.
Until the Son of God appear.
continue singing our last song here tonight. We're going to sing hymn 309. It came upon a midnight clear. Enjoy the Christmas songs while we have them. About 1 month out of the year, we get to sing these. It came upon a midnight clear. Singing, you may be seated. Get ready for Bible trivia tonight. Pastor, you're up.
All right. Who's studying? Luke 2, Luke 1 and 2 tonight. Who says side versus side? We got like almost an even distribution of people here. Who says guys versus girls? Okay. One more time. One more vote. Who says side versus side? Okay. Who says guys versus girls? Okay. Looks like side versus side has it. We'll go ahead and do side versus side tonight. And I have roughly around 30 questions. All right. Same normal rules apply. Make sure you raise your hand good and high if you know the answer, so that Brother Deke in the back can see you. It's the first hand that he sees. And so no negative points for wrong answers. So if you need to take a guess, go ahead and take it. But if you get it wrong, it immediately goes to the other side for the other side to answer. And so make sure that you're getting it right rather than throwing away your chance. It's the first hand up. And quiz out will be, let's say, 5 tonight. 5 correct answers, quiz out, all right? I think that covers all of our bases. All right, here we go. Question number 1, famous Christmas trivia, Luke chapter 1 and 2. Who was the king of Judea during the time? Herod is correct. All right, good job. What was Zacharias' role? That is correct. All right, good job. Here we go. Question number 3. To whom was Zacharias married? Elizabeth is correct. All right. We studied, I can tell. Number 4. How were Zacharias and Elizabeth described in terms of their right? Nope. This is a tough one. Back over to this side, right? How were Zacharias and Elizabeth described in terms of their righteousness? Nope. So back over to this side. Terms of their righteousness according to Luke 1:6. Nope.
Good in the sight of the Lord, righteous in the sight of the Lord.
No.
No, Jen, don't.
All right. Open to the floor. Open to the entire floor. One last chance. Oh, you can't look it up. Heather. That's cheating. Heather. You were a school teacher, too. The retired school teacher's cheating. Unbelievable. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. They were both righteous before God, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and ordinances. Luke 1:6. All right, here we go. That was a tough one. I wouldn't have gotten that either. What was the name of the angel who... Gabriel is correct. All right. Number 6. Why did Zacharias lose his ability? That is correct. That is correct. What was the name the angel instructed to give? I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Over here to this side. John is correct. All right. You were ahead of us, Ralph. All right, here we go. Or Ralph. Number 8. What will John the Baptist refrain from consuming? That is correct. Wine and strong drink. Wine and Jack Daniels. It's in there. It's in there. All right, here we go. Number 9. Number 9. What was John the Baptist's prophetic spirit likened to? That is correct. Spirit of Elijah. All right. Number 10. What relation was Elizabeth?
Mary's cousin.
That is correct. They were cousins. All right. Here we go. What was Mary when the angel... I'm sorry. Let me start that over. Where was Mary when the... Nazareth is correct. Good job. How did Gabriel greet Mary? In other words, what was the salutation?
What is your daughter's? What's her name? Who? Serena.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Fear not. Good guess, though. You know what? Let me just double check that. I just want to double check and make sure that's not the first words out of his mouth. Here we go. I'm sorry. Yes, that is incorrect. Sorry. All right, over to this side. Full question. What was the salutation that Gabriel greeted Mary with? At least start it out. You don't have to, at least start it out. Anybody? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over here to this side.
Please. Hail Mary.
Not quite. Not quite. Back over to the side, but you guys didn't know it last time. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Open to the whole floor. Anybody? All right. It is, Hail, thou art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. It was close. It was close. It was close, but no cigar. All right, here we go. Number 13. What was the name Mary was instructed to give her? Lucy. Jesus is correct. All right. That was an easy one. All right. Number 14. How was Jesus' reign described in Gabriel's Who? Oh.
Never ending?
That is correct. That is correct. All right, number 15. What unique reaction to the greeting of Mary? That is correct. John the Baptist leaped in the womb. Here we go, number 16. What did Mary declare in her song of praise when? That is correct. All right, number 17. How long did Mary stay with?
Lori. I'm sorry, Christine.
What's that? 3 months is correct. All right. Number 18. What was the reaction of neighbors and family when John was named?
Wanted to know why he wasn't named Zachariah.
That is correct. What was Zacharias able to do after naming his son?
Christine.
Speak. That's correct. All right. What did Zacharias?
Timed out.
Quizzed out? All right, Christine. Good job. Good job. All right, number 20. What did Zacharias prophesy his son would be?
Great. Among me, I really.
Sorry, no. Over here to this side. What did Zacharias prophesy his son would be? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over here, this side. I'll give it to you, yes. Okay. A prophet of the highest who would prepare the way of the Lord. Forerunner. Yes. Correct. All right. Here we go. It's 10-8. We're going into Luke 2. Who was the Roman emperor? Caesar what? Augustus is correct, yes. Just want to make sure you weren't going to say like dressing or something. All right. Number 23. Number 23. Where did Joseph and Mary go to be? Bethlehem is correct. To which tribe did Joseph belong? Judah is correct. Where was Jesus laid after his... A manger is right. All right. Why was there no room for them in the inn? I'm sorry, that's incorrect. That is correct. All right. Number 27, who were the first people told about?
Shepherds.
Shepherds is correct. All right, it's 12-12. We're all tied up here and about 5 or 6 questions left. What was the angel's message to...
Oh my gosh. Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city.
That is correct. All right, number 29. Jen's out. All right. 13-12. Here we go. Number 29. What sign were the shepherds given to... That is correct. Good job. John's out. Man, they're dropping like flies. Here we go. Number next. What did the multitude of angels say after the announcement? That is correct. All right. All right, next. Here we go. Where did the shepherds find Jesus? That is correct. Good job. Some of these questions are easier than others. All right, what did Mary do after hearing what the shepherds shared? That is correct. Okay. When was Jesus given his name officially? Sorry, that is incorrect. Over here to this side. 8 days after his birth is correct. All right. All right. Number 34. Who was the devout man in Jerusalem waiting for... Simeon is correct. All right. Here we go. It looks like the right's going to win here. This is the last question. What prophecy did Simeon give to Mary about Jesus? That is correct. All right. Good job. All right, man, you guys know your Christmas trivia. That's good. All right, let's open our Bibles, turn to the book of Numbers. We're going to start Numbers. I don't know that we'll finish it tonight because I'm going to get you out of here by 7 o'clock. All right, so we got 28 minutes. The clock is ticking, and we're diving, or not diving, but just skimming. It's just skimming as we fly 30,000 feet over the book of Numbers. All right, we finished up Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus, and now we're into the fourth book of the Bible, Numbers. Numbers bears the name because of the two censuses that take place in the book of Numbers, chapter 1 and chapter 26. So, if you look at Numbers chapter 1 and verse number 1, you see that Moses is the author, and over 50 different times in the book of Numbers, you'll see this phrase, and God spake by Moses. Numbers chapter 1 and verse number. And the Lord spake unto Moses. All right. And we see that phrase over and over again in this book. And so, you could point to Numbers 1:1, and then you could also point to Numbers 33:2. We don't have to turn there now. But there is no question that Moses was the author and is the author of Numbers. Other books of the Pentateuch might not necessarily claim authorship, but Moses is attributed as the author in another book of the Bible. So like Jesus said that Moses wrote the law, okay? And even though I believe it was the book of Leviticus, doesn't really claim authorship within the book itself, it is attributed to Moses being the author from another book of the Bible or something along those lines. And so sometimes you don't know, but Numbers is right there, and it's cut and dry who the author is. Now, the contextual background, all right, so Numbers begins basically where Exodus leaves off. If you remember, the book of Exodus is all about the Exodus from Egypt, and Israel starts in bondage and they end the book in freedom. They start in not knowing who really God is. God calls Moses, sends Moses in. They're able to come out of Israel, and they end the book in God's presence. So they start in spiritual obscurity. They end with the tabernacle set up and God's presence coming down in the form of a cloud and dwelling. And so they're in freedom and they're in God's presence. And then you see the book of Leviticus, which is it covers about 1 month. Now, if you remember the timeline, Genesis, how many years approximately did Genesis cover? Does anybody know off the top of our head? We've said it a bunch of times. I think I've said it every week. How many? 2,000 close. About 2,300. About 2,300 years. All right? Bible scholars disagree on this, but roughly we can follow the genealogies of the Bible, and we're looking at about 6,000 years, give or take, of human history. So Genesis covers 2,300 of those years, okay? It covers like over a third of human history. It gives us a quick, catch up. The first 2,000 years are covered in the first 11 chapters, and then it kind of slows down. The rest from chapter 12 through chapter 50 of Genesis is 300 years, so a total of 2,300 years. And then you get to the book of Exodus, and it slows way down. It speeds through the first 80 years of Moses' life in the first chapter or two, and then the rest of the book of Exodus just covers the course of 1 year. All the plagues, everything there, that all happened within the course of 1 year. So Exodus covers 81 years of timeline. And then you get to Leviticus. Leviticus slows down even more, and you're only covering the span of 1 month. Really, there isn't really a story or a narrative necessarily in the book of Leviticus. That's about how long it probably took Moses to write it. And Leviticus is just a bunch of instructions and laws that Israel's supposed to live by. So when you get done with Leviticus, Numbers picks up where Exodus leaves off. They're camped at the foot of Mount Sinai. They've received the law of the Lord. They've erected the tabernacle, and they're encamped at the foot of Mount Sinai where they got the Ten Commandments, and God's presence and God's Spirit is dwelling amongst them at the end of the book of Exodus. And then 1 month goes by, and then we start Numbers, and this is where we're at. They're encamped at Mount Sinai, okay? Now, the book of Numbers here is, it's a story about continuing from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land, all right? And ideally, in a perfect world, we know God ultimately brought them out of Egypt to bring them into the Promised Land. However, we understand, if you know anything about Scripture, they ended up wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. All that story it takes place in the book of Numbers. So we see the wanderings and all of that. All right, so that's kind of the contextual background here of where Numbers starts off and where it's going. So you have really the Jewish calendar kind of starts off with the first month of the first Passover, where Israel comes out of Egypt. That's the first month. That's where they start their calendar, all right? And then you see that a year passes because Exodus covers about the span of a year. So by the end of Exodus, a whole year has gone by, and we're getting close to the second Passover coming, okay? They're approaching the 1-year anniversary of coming out of Egypt at the end of Exodus. So in Numbers, where Numbers picks up, you got about a month span where Moses writes Leviticus. Numbers picks up the second month of the second year, all right? Because that month time that it took to write Leviticus is the first month of the second year, if you're following. So again, we're just trying to get an idea of the timeline here. So Numbers 1:1, and the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tabernacle of the congregation on the first day of the second month in the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt. All right? And so that kind of gives us the time. It starts the clock ticking, okay? And Numbers is going to cover about the span of 40 years. All right? The actual timeline. And you'll conveniently notice that that's the amount of time that Israel wanders in the wilderness right before they enter into the Promised Land. And that's where the book of Numbers cuts off. We don't actually see Moses go in because he ends up not going into the Promised Land, right? And so the author, of course, is Moses. We covered that. The intended audience is Israel. And it's intended to give Israel's history and then, honestly, all of us a history because there's spiritual significance to it. It's not just a history book of Israel's history, but it's God intending to convey the message of redemption and how man fails time and time and time again, and God in His grace can still, in spite of failure, bring us into the Promised Land. That's ultimately the message. So we covered the time period. Now, it covers about 40 years, all right, of Israel wandering in the wilderness, but it doesn't cover the whole time, okay? So as you read through the book of Numbers, there's all these different stories, but really, the book of Numbers is 3 different snapshots of the 40 years. It doesn't just cover the 40, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. The first snapshot covers the first year of journeying, and then it cuts off. So chapters 1 through 15 are just the first year of their 40-year wandering. Okay, their 40-year journey. Chapters 1 through 15 is just that first year. Then chapters 16 through 19, it picks up 20 years later. Okay, so we have 1 year that goes by, and then it skips. It skips ahead, fast forwards. We don't know anything that happened year 2 through year 19. All right, it covers the first year. Then we see year 20, about midway through the journey. That's chapters 16 through 19. All right, and then you get to and then it skips 20 years ahead again. And in chapter 20 through chapter 36, it covers the last year of their journeyings. So really, we don't know a whole bunch that happened during the 40-year wanderings. We're in the dark. As much as we do know all the stories of them wandering in the wilderness and the brazen serpent and all these different things that the book of Numbers conveys, it's only covering about 3 years. It's covering year 1, year 20, and year 40. There's 3 different snapshots, and it's skipping everything else in between. All right? So there's a lot about the 40-year wanderings that we actually don't know. And that's something that I learned just digging into this book in order to survey it here. That's something that I didn't personally know. So that first slide, Jimmy, if you put that up there, I forget what that is. So we see here, this is generally a map, all right? And you see here where they left Egypt, Sukkoth, all right, from the land of Goshen, and they traveled down here. Now, Bible scholars disagree about whether they crossed midway through the Red Sea or if they came down here and crossed at the tip right here. I tend to think it was down here. To me, that makes a little more sense. But either way, whether they crossed here or they crossed here, that's all the book of Exodus, okay? So they journey down here, they cross over the Red Sea, God parts the Red Sea, and all that is laid out in the book of Exodus. We understand that. And then they come down to Mount Sinai, or if they crossed here, they come up to Mount Sinai. And right here, Mount Sinai is in modern-day Saudi Arabia. Okay, that's where it's at. And so here is where Moses gets the law, all right? And so they're camped, Numbers starts with them camped here, all right? And they're getting ready. The first 10 chapters of the book is God preparing them. It's called the preparation to leave, okay? Because God is going to prepare them now to journey to the promised land. So the first 10 chapters is before they actually pick up camp and move, God is preparing them with instructions and different things. So the first 4 chapters are chapters of organization. Chapter 1 is a census. And this is really how we know, if you wanted to divide the book of Acts, you could divide it up a bunch of different ways. But really, there's 2 main sections. There is, and each section is divided up by censuses, all right? So chapter 1 starts off with a census. All right, it's going to take a sense. It's going to count all the numbers of all the tribes of the men that were the proper age to fight in battle. So, in other words, God is preparing Israel to number their men so that they know how many warriors they have to go to battle. That's an important thing to understand and to know. So this is where the name Numbers comes from. It's not dealing with mathematics, or it's not dealing constantly with numbers. The book of Numbers is called Numbers because there's 2 censuses and 2 sections, and each section starts with a census. So the first section is chapters 1 through 25, all right? And it starts with the census in the first chapter, and that covers the first generation. All right? And this is the rebellious generation. This is the generation that refuses to go into the promised land. And then in chapter 26 through to the end of the book, now you have the second generation, the generation that survives the wandering in the wilderness and ends up going into the promised land with Joshua. That would be the second generation, and that generation is given instruction right at the end of the book, right before they get ready to go in, and a census is taken in chapter 26, numbering the new generation, okay? So Numbers is divided into 2 sections, the first generation and the second generation, and each section starts with a census, and that's where again, the book gets its name. So, going to the outline here, chapters 1 through 4, it would be chapters of organization. In chapter 1, we have the census of the warriors, and then we have the duties of the Levites laid out. Everyone has a job, and the number of men that are prepared for battle or are able to fight comes out, the total is 603,550 men. If you total all the numbers in Numbers chapter 1, that's the census. All right, 603,550 men. I don't know why that's important. Just thought, hey, if it's a book with the name Numbers, you might as well know what the census comes out to, right? So then chapter 2, we see the arrangement of the camp. And Jimmy, show that other slide. This is now this is what's interesting is I've heard some pastors preach that the camp of Israel was arranged in the form of a cross. If you were able to fly over it from a bird's eye view, Israel was arranged in the form of a cross. It's possible that could be because these 12 tribes of Israel were told specifically where to camp in relation to the tabernacle, which was in the middle. So you had the Levites here that were in charge of keeping, setting it up and taking it down. When God's presence would get up and start moving, they would take up the tabernacle. The Levites were the ones that were in charge of transporting all this. And then the 12 tribes, Judah was supposed to camp, I believe it was in the east, and Issachar and Zebulun. and Reuben and Simeon and Gad. And it gives the numbers of all these. So Judah was by far the largest tribe. And when you total all the numbers of the different tribes and the population that it gives you there, you can see that the one that Judah is a part of would have a longer section. So if they did indeed camp this way, it would form a cross, which is kind of cool. I mean, that's kind of cool, but we can't be dogmatic about it because other Bible scholars say that kind of setup wouldn't really be conducive to setting up any kind of defense against attack. And the reason why God probably looked more like this, the camp of Israel, tabernacle in the middle. Again, you have these Reuben, Simeon, Gad to the south. You have Dan, Asher, Naphtali to the north, and of course Judah to the east, and all of these here you can kind of see. And that seems to make a little more sense as far as the way the camp was probably arranged to fend off, to kind of put a fortification around Levi and around the tabernacle itself there. But that whole arrangement of the camp is laid out in chapter 2. The tribes didn't just go wherever they wanted. They marched in lockstep, in formation, and camped out where when God said, move the tabernacle, they marched together. When God said, set up the tabernacle, and God stopped, they would set up camp, and they had to set up camp within a specific boundary like we see there. Now, chapter 3. The Levites, the ones that were in charge of setting up the tabernacle and the different furniture and moving that and everything, are dedicated to the Lord. And then in chapter 4, the Levites' duties are arranged by family. So the tribe of Levi is split up into 3 different families, and each family is given specific tasks and specific responsibilities in setting up the tabernacle itself. So in other words, one tribe would be in charge of the furniture of the tabernacle, where another tribe might be in charge of the outer wall, taking down the outer wall and transporting that. And then another part of Levi would be in charge of taking down the Holy of Holies and the holy place, the inner part of the tabernacle. And so everybody's duties then are given, everybody's job description is written out, and this is all for the purpose of organization. Before they pick up and move, God organizes everything so that he's got a smooth operating machine so that everybody knows what their job is, everybody knows that they're important and that they have a job to do and they have a responsibility to fulfill. And then we get into chapters 5 through 10. So chapters 1 through 4 is organization. Chapters 5 through 10 is sanctification. So chapter 5, we see that there are laws dealing with uncleanness, sins of adultery, different things along those lines. And these laws are to set Israel apart physically. All right, they're laws to do with physical laws. All right. And then in chapter 6, we see the Nazirite vow. Now, this is to be set apart voluntarily. And this is, again, if you've heard the Nazirite, who was a famous Nazirite from birth? Samson, right? Samson, one of the judges later on. And but he was a special case. But he wasn't the first Nazirite. He was just unique because he was a Nazirite from birth. But the Nazirite, the vow of a Nazirite is laid out in chapter 6, Numbers chapter 6. And the word Nazirite means one who is consecrated, separated, devoted. It was a vow that an Israelite could take voluntarily in order to dedicate themselves to the Lord. And it was a vow that specifically was instituted for the purpose of, Lord, I love you so much, I want to separate myself from everything else. I want to dedicate my life to you. And God said, okay, cool, here's a way that you could do that. You could take, if you want to go above and beyond, you could take the Nazirite vow and say no to strong drinks. Say no to wine. Say no to ever touching dead bodies. And the Nazirite vow was a temporary vow. It wasn't supposed to be a permanent thing. Like in the case of Samson, that was unique because he was a Nazirite from birth. He was supposed to live as a Nazirite his entire life. That was something that God had laid out. But normally the Nazirite vow was for a temporary period to be specified by the person voluntarily undertaking it. All right? So that's all laid out in chapter 6. And then in chapter 7, we see, at the end of chapter 6, we see the Aaronic blessing. Numbers chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. These are famous passages of Scripture. We don't do it too much here, but there are some churches that repeat this at the end of every service, right? And you probably have heard this before. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. How in the world does that fit in with the context of what we're talking about? Well, when you separate yourself unto the Lord, blessing follows it. All right? And so that's how that fits into the context at the end of chapter 6 when we're talking about being set apart. And set apart physically in chapter 5, set apart voluntarily in chapter 6. And then in chapter 7, we see worship. And we see the dedication of the tabernacle with offerings. All right? So all of the offerings that we talked about in the book of Leviticus, remember there were 5 voluntary offerings. Five offerings. 3 of them were voluntary. 2 of them were mandatory. So in Numbers chapter 7, we see the worship, the dedication of the tabernacle, and then these sacrifices starting to take place and starting to happen. All right? And then in chapter 8, we see the consecration of the Levites, and they get into action with their duties. And even in chapter 8, the retirement of the Levites is laid out. They were to serve from, and I wish I would have wrote these numbers down. I believe it was the age of 30 to 50. So they served for 20 years, and then at age 50, they were able to retire, all right? It's kind of like a sweet gig, all right? You retire early. But God had a retirement plan laid out there, and that's in Numbers chapter 8. And then in chapter 9, all right, we see the first anniversary Passover since the Exodus. So this is the second actual Passover, but it's the first Passover that's celebrated in freedom. Remember, the first Passover was celebrated in Egypt, and that was the night that they actually came out of Egypt. Well, now 1 year later, and this actually happened before the writing of the book of Numbers, because Numbers was written, it picks up from the first day of the second month of the second year. Well, the second Passover would be the first day of the first month. All right? So this was exactly 1 month before Numbers 1:1. All right? So chapter 9 kind of goes back for a second and reviews that first Passover. And this is a celebratory time. It's a time where Israel is, it's like getting married. You have your wedding day, and then the first anniversary. Remember, you take the frozen cake. Do they still do that? Do they freeze the wedding cake still? You guys have frozen cake left over? All right. And you eat the frozen cake, and the first anniversary is it's such a big deal, and you remember what happened a year ago, and it's such a celebratory thing. And so that's what happens here in chapter 9. All right. And then chapter 10, the signals of communication are established. So God says, listen, you're going to have these silver trumpets, and there's certain alarms, there's certain sounds that these trumpets are going to make. And when you hear this sound, you do this thing. When you hear this alarm, you do this thing. And God is working out a signal and a system of communication between the tribes, getting ready to organize them because they're getting ready to pack up and leave camp, okay? And so chapter 10, the signals of communication are established with the silver trumpets, and it provides a way to lead them. And then we also see the explanation, again, reinstituted of the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. You be ready to go when the cloud moves. And this is kind of indicative of really the Christian life. You know, God says, when I come and stand in a certain place and the cloud descends down upon the tabernacle there, you know, just stay where you are. Don't move. And, well, God, when are we leaving? Don't worry about it. You'll know when we're leaving. When the cloud comes up, and now you know, all right, we got to pack up. We got to follow the cloud. We got to follow the Lord wherever the Lord goes, because we have to be ready on a moment's notice. And this is the Christian life, right? We live our life ready at a moment's notice to move if God moves us, to stay when God tells us to stay, and we are at the beckoning call of God's leading in our lives. And honestly, it's also indicative of the rapture. We're waiting for the rapture, right? It could be any day, in the moment, in a twinkle of an eye, at the last trump, right? When that trumpet sounds, it's time to go. And that's what we've been waiting for now for 2,000 years. And so we even see kind of the typological picture there of the Christian life today and the way that we're supposed to live. You're not supposed to be entrenched when Israel was encamped. They're not, digging in foundations for, all right, we're going to build our house here. No. You're just pilgrims traveling through the wilderness. This is not your permanent dwelling place. And when God sounds, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, and when the cloud ascends up, it's time to fold up your tent and move on. And that's again a picture of the Christian life. This world is not our home. We're just passing through. It's just a temporary thing. And one of these days that trumpet's going to sound, and we're out of here. And so don't get too entrenched in the Christian life. All right. It is 7:00. We'll draw a line there, and we'll pick up not next week, because next week we'll all be running around like chickens with our head cut off for the live nativity. And the week after that is Sunday night fellowship, because it's the week before Christmas. And the week after that, I'm not totally sure I'll be here, because we are going to my parents for Christmas. So I don't know if I'll be back by the 29th or not. If I am, we'll continue then. But if not, we'll continue the week after that.